good morning, or good afternoon, or even good evening. It doesn't matter to me. But, have you ever heard of a game called Bomberman Jetters? I woke up one morning thinking I wanted a new Bomberman game, and I looked it up when I was about 8 years old, found this game, and begged my parents for it. We searched every GameStop and EB Games on the fucking East Coast for this copy. Eventually one day we found it, and it was definitely not the Bomberman game I was expecting, but I'm very glad that I did. Bomberman Jetters is a game that was released way back in 2002 in Japan, but in 2004 in North America on the Nintendo GameCube. This game is what you'd expect from a typical Bomberman game, moving around and just blowing things up, but this time it's an adventure style format. The game is definitely not perfect, and the game has your staple battle modes and arcade modes just as any other Bomberman title, but this one uses characters from the game in addition to just different colored Bombermen. In this game you control White Bomber, or Shirobon. The main villain is a guy named Mujo. His minions, known as the Higgy Higgy Bandits, are tired of Shirobon and his friends thwarting their plans for galactic conquest. So the villain's plan is to destroy the planet that the heroes live on by crashing his artificial comet, the Dark Star, into the planet. This starts a 24-hour timer in-game, which means if you do not complete the game within 24 hours, you automatically get a game over. While an interesting concept, as a kid I was very worried that I would not have enough time to complete the game, so I just stopped playing it. However, that is the villain's plan. It is certainly a plan. It is not a very good one though. Immediately, you will notice something about this Bomberman title that is different to all the other ones you might have seen. This game uses a traditional anime style that really holds up to the test of time given the game released back in 2004. I always wondered why this was, because when you turn on the game, you also get a very anime opening looking cutscene. So, as a kid, I looked all of this up because I was really curious, and it turns out the game is loosely based off of an anime of the same name. Bomberman Jetters has its own show in Japan with the same name, with roughly 52 episodes that ran for about a year. There were talks of it potentially getting localized in North America, and the proof is in the pudding because this game got localized to North America. But as far as we know, that was only rumors, and nothing ever came from it to this day. The only way that you can get this kind of media on a disc is if you buy the Bomberman Jetters Blu-ray, which will cost you about $500 US, which I don't think anybody in their right mind is going. However, because this game is loosely based off of an anime of the same name, it was received very, very poorly because the personalities of the anime characters were heavily altered, and character inclusions from the anime were wasted, and potential for really cool sequences like with this character named Max, who's a intergalactic criminal. He's just basically a reskin of the main character. The game has also a lot of questionable mechanics, including a very weird Pokemon knockoff that people were just generally unhappy with. In terms of the adventure mode, Mujo sends out different Bombermen that he has created to fight the White Bomber, and after every stage you're met with a boss. These bosses can range from Mermaid Bomber all the way up to Mujo himself. The last two bosses of the game are Mujo and his partner Mechadoc, and while they are rather underwhelming, that could also be due to North American localization, because Konami and Hudson Soft had a tendency to make their North American versions of the games a lot easier. However, what really takes the cake in this game is the battle modes and the arcade modes that are included with it. Everything looks beautiful with this new anime art style, different characters, and the inclusion of things that we haven't seen before, like a tile flipping minigame and an arcade mode that goes by how long you last rather than how many people you've killed. It is definitely an interesting take on the traditional Bomberman formula, but still stays true to the original. Putting the game aside, I want to touch back upon the anime for a second, because the anime was not the only format of Bomberman Jetters content that was created. There's actually two other Game Boy Advance games for Bomberman Jetters that also never released in North America. One was a minigame collection, and one was more like a top-down RPG following the White Bomber's older brother. I'm not going to get too deep into these because I have no way of accessing these games, but off of the little that I have played of them, they are rather very simple games, and they stray so far from the Bomberman formula that they were not received as well. The anime, however, takes the encapsulation of what Bomberman was, which was this lighthearted, friendly party game, and just really puts it into perspective for a new audience. The anime does not take itself too seriously, as it becomes like a slice of life anime with moments that'll make you laugh, moments that'll make you cry, and everything in between. All in all, it's a pretty solid, well-rounded anime, and while it might not be available in America on any kind of streaming service, you can find it all online through either YouTube or third-party links. Or, if you are that dedicated to the franchise and the anime, you can buy the $500 box set, but I do not recommend that. Bomberman Jetters is definitely a game that you should give a try. While it might not be as polished as newer titles like Super Bomberman are, it definitely has an interesting take on the traditional formula that is known as Bomberman, and has a different art style than anything else we've seen in the franchise to date. That, paired up with its anime counterpart, makes for a really interesting experience, especially if you go through every form of media that Bomberman Jetters has. It's a nice little sub-franchise for the original Bomberman, and I think, honestly, it should have been continued and localized further into North America.